Hey guys, welcome back to my channel once again. So today we are going to do the part 2 of chapter 3, in which I will be covering the risk part. In case you haven't watched the first part, I would suggest you to go and watch it because उसमें सारा return का part cover है, ठीक है? Okay, let's begin. What is risk? Risk refers to the uncertainty in the expected returns of our investment. As I have been repeating the same thing, I think third time in my third video, the risk refers to the variability. Whatever you have expected returns from your investment, let's say you have invested $100 and you expect your returns to be 12%, it is not always going to be true that you will always earn 12%. It may be more than 12% or it may be less than 12%. Okay, so it depends upon the various factors, how your risk fluctuates in your market or depends upon your securities. Now, what is the difference between the uncertainty and the risk? Do you think these two are the same terms? No, they are used interchangeably today, but they are actually not the same terms. Uncertainty is something that you cannot predict at all. No probabilities can be assigned to this. Okay, uncertain, anything can happen. Tomorrow, natural disaster can happen. It is very uncertain. Risk, something that have happened in the past, or you can assign the probabilities. If you flip a coin, there are only two possibilities, either heads or tails. You can assign the probabilities 1 by 2 and 1 by 2. So uncertainty is something that you cannot actually calculate at all. Risk is something you can calculate using your probability, using your predictions, using your past patterns. The next topic, what are the type of risk? Risks are of two types, the systematic and the unsystematic. The systematic risk is something that cannot be diversified at all. मतलब अगर आपकी इंडस्ट्री में आपकी इंडस्ट्री में कोई रिस्क एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है तो दैट एग्जिस्ट इन एवरी अदर कंपनी, एवरी अदर इंडस्ट्री और इवन द होल इकोनॉमी. फॉर एग्जांपल, लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ कोविड. कोविड इज समथिंग जिससे हर किसी को इम्पैक्ट हुआ था, राइट? तो कोविड इज समथिंग दैट वाज बियॉन्ड योर कंट्रोल. So anything that is beyond the control of an organization, which cannot be diversified, which cannot be reduced, is called a systematic risk. You have to deal with it. ठीक है, आपको डील करना ही पड़ेगा. You cannot just reduce it. The unsystematic risk. Unsystematic risks are those risks which is specific to your company, to your industry. You can diversify it. When I talk about the diversification, I am aiming to reduce my risk. I am aiming to mitigate my risk. How do you think we can actually mitigate our risk? For example, if I have $10,000 and I have invested my whole money in Reliance Industries, I can reduce my risk by diversifying, by investing in multiple other securities. Okay, either I can choose securities of other industries or I can choose securities of other country. Okay, so this is the extent of diversification that you want, either geographical or your industry. You can diversify your risk, which is called an unsystematic risk. Now there are various type of systematic risk. The first is market risk. Market risk matlab share prices में movement. Let's say the whole BSE or the Indian stock market has collapsed. Do you think it was under your control? No, it was not under your control. Even in this time, few good companies can have a adverse impact. So this is known as your market risk, which happens due to the share prices movement and something that is not under your control. The interest rate risk. इंटरेस्ट, मार्केट रेट इंटरेस्ट, मार्केट में कितना पैसा कितने इंटरेस्ट पे पैसा मिल रहा है, इट इज नॉट समथिंग विच यू कैन डिसाइड, मार्केट इज डिसाइडिंग. ठीक है, तो लेट्स से पहले मार्केट इंटरेस्ट रेट वाज 10%, नाउ इट इज 12%. it depends upon the economy, it depends upon the demand and supply, जो भी बहुत सारे factors है to determine the interest rate, the market interest rate, and these are the factors that are not under your control. The purchasing power or the inflation risk. Okay, can I say it as the inflation rises, the purchasing capacity of a consumer falls? Exactly. So is it something under your control? Can you control the inflation? No, it isn't. Country specific, ठीक है. US में inflation कम है, India में ज़्यादा है, ठीक है. तो this depends upon your country to country and economy to economy, whether it is a developed economy, whether it is a developing economy, ठीक है. Exchange rate risk. Let's say your company is dealing in 2-3 countries, let's say USA, India and your Australia. Exchange currencies तीनों में जो मूवमेंट हो रही है, इज इट समथिंग अंडर योर कंट्रोल? नो, इट इज नॉट. ठीक है, तो एक्सचेंज रेट रिस्क इज समथिंग that is not under your control because it is a fluctuation in the exchange rates of different countries. Okay, next, the business risk. Business risk refers to the operating risk also. ऑपरेटिंग रिस्क का एग्जांपल ले सकते हैं हम लेबर. लेट्स से आज तुम्हारी लेबर स्ट्राइक पे बैठ गई, तो इज इट समथिंग अंडर योर कंट्रोल? ऑफ कोर्स इट इज योर कंट्रोल. ठीक है, आपकी लेबर बैठी है, आपकी स्ट्राइक है, यू हैव टू डील विद इट. तो दिस इज समथिंग बिजनेस रिस्क. द फाइनेंशियल रिस्क. फाइनेंशियल रिस्क रेफर्स टू द कैपिटल स्ट्रक्चर में. लेट्स से आपका इक्विटी डेट वाज 50-50 earlier. But now, due to the new projects, you have to raise the funds. Now it is 60%, or you can say 80%, and your equity is now 20%. Do you really think this was your fault? Yes, of course, this was your fault. This was your decision to increase the debt financial leverage in your, capital structure. So this is known as your financial risk. Risk क्यों बोला ऐसे? रिस्क इसलिए बोला है बिकॉज फाइनेंशियल रिस्क इन्वॉल्व्स, अगर आप डेट आज लोगे तो आपको उसके ऊपर इंटरेस्ट भी देना पड़ेगा एंड आपको उसका प्रिंसिपल पेमेंट भी देना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, तो दीज आर योर कंपल्सरी पेमेंट ड्यू टू द डेट दैट यू हैव रेज्ड. तो ड्यू टू विच आपका रिस्क बढ़ जाता है एंड आपकी कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल भी राइज हो जाती है. ठीक है, नाउ as I mentioned earlier, systematic risk is something that is beyond your control, that you cannot diversify at all. But you can definitely deal with the unsystematic risk. कैसे deal करोगे? Diversification. अब इस डायग्राम को समझते हैं, काफी easy है. ठीक है, डाइवर्सिफिकेशन कैसे होता है? जैसे मैंने बोला, you have $10,000. If you have invested in a single security A, you can diversify by rising number of securities in your portfolio. तो आपने अपना पोर्टफोलियो की सिक्योरिटीज बढ़ाई. पहले आपने एक में इन्वेस्ट किया था, अब आपने 2 में कर दिया, जैसे आपने 3 में किया, 4 में किया. ठीक है, जैसे जैसे आप डाइवर्सिफाई करते रहोगे आपका अनसिस्टमैटिक रिस्क कम होता रहेगा, बट लेकिन आपका सिस्टमैटिक रिस्क सेम रहेगा. क्यों सेम रहेगा? बिकॉज ये आप कभी भी डाइवर्सिफाई कर ही नहीं सकते. ये कर सकते हो तो ये कम हो जाएगा. तो दिस इज द टोटल रिस्क. ठीक है, आई होप दिस इज क्लियर. इसमें कुछ समझने वाला एज सच था नहीं, बट दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. नाउ expected return from your security. Say, let's say you have invested once again 1,000 in your securities. ठीक है, आप अगर ट्रेजरी बिल में पैसा इन्वेस्ट करते तो आपको 2% मिलता. ठीक है, आपने एबीसी लिमिटेड में किया है, यू आर गेटिंग 5%. व्हाई? लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड व्हाई. Treasury bill is the minimum risk-free of return that you shall get from your investment. ठीक है, so this is the risk-free returns that you will get. This is a kind of compensation that you are getting from the time value of the money. आपने अपना पैसा 4 साल के लिए इन्वेस्ट करके रखा है, इस 4 साल का compensation you are getting as a 2%. Let's say FD, fixed securities. जो आप बैंक में करवाते, दैट इज द मिनिमम रिटर्न दैट यू एक्सपेक्ट. Now risk premium. Risk premium is the additional 3% that you are getting. Why do you think you are getting additional 3%? Why cannot just ABC, offer you again 2%? This is because treasury bill बिल्कुल risk free था. This is government securities. ABC Limited is a company, okay, जहाँ पे risk exist करता है, ठीक है. तो आपका ये जो रिस्क कॉम्पेंसेशन है, जो आप रिस्क ले रहे हो, उसके लिए आपको 3% एक्स्ट्रा मिल रहा है, ठीक है. लेट्स टेक एन अनदर कंपनी XYZ लिमिटेड. ये बहुत ही ज्यादा रिस्की कंपनी है, ठीक है. कंपनी में मार्केट में इसकी इमेज थोड़ी खराब है. तो ये क्या करती है, ये अपने इन्वेस्टर्स को थोड़ा ज्यादा रिटर्न ऑफर करती है, ठीक है. कितना ऑफर रिटर्न करती है? लेट्स से 20%, sorry, let's say 20%. Why do you think it is investing, offering too much to his investors? क्योंकि वो आए, ठीक है. और कितना प्रीमियम दे रही है? 18%. कुछ इडियट इन्वेस्टर्स होंगे जो ये 18% एक्स्ट्रा सोच के जाएंगे, बट जैसे मैंने फर्स्ट चैप्टर में कहा था, सेफ्टी ऑफ कैपिटल इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, ठीक है. तो आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि आप इतनी ज्यादा रिस्की इन्वेस्टमेंट भी ना करें, ज्यादा लालची ना हो, बिकॉज रिस्क ज्यादा लोगे तो रिटर्न भी ज्यादा मिलेंगे, ये है, बट टू सम एक्सटेंट, ठीक है. Okay. Type of investors. There are three type of investors that exist in a particular market. Risk averse. Most of the cases, जहाँ पे they don't want to take a risk but they need a minimum return. वो कहते हैं हमें minimum return दे दो, हम उससे खुश हैं, लेकिन हम risk नहीं लेना चाहते, ठीक है. Can you, मतलब एग्जाम्पल जो मेरे अकॉर्डिंग हो सकता है, is the old age people. They are not ready to take risk. क्यों? That's why they are, more interested in fixed income securities. Risk neutral. They remain neutral कि risk भी थोड़ा लेंगे और return भी थोड़ा, ठीक है. तो they remain neutral. Neither they hate risk nor they love risk. Risk seeker. ये कहते हैं हम तो रिस्क भी ज्यादा लेंगे और हम रिटर्न भी ज्यादा कमाएंगे, ठीक है. यूथ. They are ready to invest in the equity. They are ready to take risk in order to earn the higher returns. Next topic is risk aversion, utility analysis, and IC. I think this is not very important for the exam point of view. ऐसे question आते नहीं है, तो I am leaving this topic for time being, क्योंकि हमें सारे topics cover करने हैं, जल्दी जल्दी करने हैं, क्योंकि exam आ रहा है. So you can just read it or you can just study these diagrams. Risk neutral, risk seekers. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, that is the calculation of risk. Total risk. पहले भी बता चुकी हूँ, सिस्टमैटिक होता है एंड अनसिस्टमैटिक होता है, ठीक है. अब इसे हम करते हैं मेजर. कैसे करोगे? सबसे पहले हम देखते हैं टोटल रिस्क कैसे करोगे. टोटल रिस्क इज कैलकुलेटेड यूजिंग द स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन अब क्वेश्चन दो तरीके से पूछा जा सकता है, या तो प्रोबेबिलिटी नहीं दी हुई होगी या प्रोबेबिलिटी दी हुई होगी. ये फॉर्मूलाज आर देख लो एक बार, बट एज यू प्रैक्टिस मोर एंड मोर क्वेश्चंस आपको बहुत इजी लगने लगेंगे. वी विल सॉल्व 2 क्वेश्चंस एंड यू विल फाइंड इट मोर लॉजिकल. ये ना बहुत ज्यादा स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन का हमने पहली क्लासेस में किया हुआ है. Just stick to the basic formula of standard deviation and you will be able to solve the question. Let's do the next question. Now see, in this question you have not been assigned the probabilities. You have been given the years. These are your return percentage. 10, 12, 8, 5, 10, 30, 7, 5, 8, 12. ठीक है. Let's calculate the expected return. Expected return अब कैसे निकालूं? निकाल सकते expected return. It is nothing but the mean return. ठीक है? Mean कैसे निकालती हूँ? Sum of divided by n. So expected is 9%. Can I calculate the deviation? This minus 9. So this is the deviation. Can I calculate the deviation ka square? Now, let's sum it up. As we don't have the probabilities, my risk, my SD would become 74 divided by 10 ka root. This would come out to be 2.72%. This was your total risk of a security. Now, let's resume. Okay, so what is the limitation of standard deviation? Let's understand it with an example. Let's say I have security A and security B. उन दोनों का expected returns are 10% and 10%. The risk that I am concluding is 5% and 10%. What do you think, which security is better? Of course, this security, because I have to take lesser risk to earn the same amount of return. Okay, समझ में आ गया. Next, एक और example लेते हैं A and B. ठीक है, इसमें कहा मैंने कि जो रिटर्न था that is 10% and 20%, and जो मैंने risk लिया है that is 5% and 10%. Can you actually calculate the AST and compare the risk? No, you cannot. क्यों? क्योंकि दोनों के returns अलग है. अब मैं ये नहीं कह सकती कि मैंने कम risk लिया तो it is better. Why? मैंने return भी तो कम कमाया. ठीक है, तो when the expected returns of the securities vary, you cannot just calculate the standard deviation and compare the securities. तो हमें क्या निकालना पड़ता है? Coefficient of variation, which is nothing but the standard deviation upon the mean. Let's do it with an example. ये बहुत common question है एग्जाम में. You can just do it very quickly. अभी मैंने समझाया, तो हम क्या करेंगे? Standard deviation upon mean, ठीक है, and 18% upon 30. This would come out to be 0.75 and 0.60 if I am not wrong. तो हम क्या करेंगे? Coefficient of variation, coefficient of variance is greater in A than B. Therefore, the riskiness of security A is greater than the B, and hence A security is riskier than security B. तो यहाँ पे क्या बोला था? Can it concluded that the security B is more risky than security A? Definitely not. Okay, so till now we were only focusing on the total risk. Total risk was calculated through the standard deviation. That was an absolute measure of the risk, and coefficient of variance was calculated, the relative measure of the risk. But now we need to bifurcate our total risk into systematic risk as well as the unsystematic risk. The first comes is systematic risk. What do you think systematic risk is? We have already covered something that cannot be controlled, something which is beyond the control of an entity, the economic, political, and the social risk that revolves around a particular entity. ठीक है, अब क्या हुआ? These are the formulas that needs to be learned. Okay, FOI consists of few formulas that needs to be marked up and has no solution to it. So take a screenshot, learn it, revise it daily. The maximum that I can do on my part is that I can solve a question in order to make the things simpler, in order to understand कि ये कैसे apply करेंगे. ठीक है? Now we need to solve this question. This is actually very easy question. You need to calculate the beta value. Okay, once you are well versed with the formula, it would be very easy to calculate. Let's say this is RS, this is RM. The first step is to calculate RS into RM. ठीक है. Then we have to do RM square. Let's do RS into RM. This would come out to be 80, 120. 15 into 12 is 180. 30 into 25 is 750, 24 and 20. This would come out to be total as 1174. This is 64 and this is 77. RM square is 64, 100, 144, 625, 16 and 25. This comes out to be 974. ठीक है, let's apply to this formula. Okay, हमें क्या निकालना है? Beta. Let's calculate it using this formula. RS into RM का आया था 1174 minus RS का total आया था 77. RM का total was 64 divided by N. N was 6 divided by, can I write it here? Okay, divided by 974 sigma RM, that is 64 ka square divided by again 6. This is my numerator, this is my denominator. Once you do this calculation, it will come out to be 1.21. Now you need to understand what is 1.21. Beta is greater than 1.21. ठीक है, ये याद रखना. Okay, let's understand this. Beta is greater than 1. This is this case, which was 1.21. Now, what does this mean? That if there is a change of 1% in the market return, let's say my market moves 1% up, then my securities return would move 1.21%. ठीक है, so this is the conclusion that you have to make. If it is less than 1, let's say beta is equal to 0.80. What does it mean? अगर market 1% से ऊपर जा रही है तो मेरी जो security की return है that would go only up by, let's say, okay, 0.8%. ठीक है, beta is equal to 1 कितना हो गया? अगर market 10% से ऊपर जा रही है तो मेरे जो सिक्योरिटी की रिटर्न्स है that will also go up by 10%. This is how you need to do the conclusion. अगर बीटा नेगेटिव है, मार्केट रिटर्न्स अगर 10% से ऊपर जा रहे हैं तो आपके सिक्योरिटी के रिटर्न 10% से नीचे आ रहे हैं. तो दिस इज द ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन. ठीक है, so till now we have been calculating the beta. Do you think the beta is a systematic risk? No, beta is just an indicator of the systematic risk. If I say कि market return 10% है and मेरा beta 1.5 है, तो मेरी securities would move into the 15% का, मेरी securities में कितना movement आएगा? 15% आएगा. But it did not tell me कि मेरा systematic risk क्या है. ठीक है, जैसे स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन ने बताया था कि ये टोटल रिस्क है, बीटा ने मुझे ये नहीं बताया कि ये सिस्टमैटिक रिस्क कितना है. तो वो निकालने के लिए आई हैव टू यूज दिस फॉर्मूला अगेन. दिस इज इन द फॉर्म ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन को अगर तुम स्क्वायर करोगे तो क्या आता है? वेरिएंस आता है. ठीक है, इतना तो पता है. तो सिस्टमैटिक रिस्क क्या हो गया? इन द फॉर्म ऑफ वेरिएंस इज नथिंग बट बीटा का स्क्वायर ऑफ द सिक्योरिटी इनटू मार्केट का स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. अभी यही कर रही हूं मैं. लेट्स डू इट विद द हेल्प ऑफ एग्जांपल. अनसिस्टमैटिक रिस्क क्या होता है? टोटल रिस्क में से अगर मैं सिस्टमैटिक हटा दूंगी तो क्या आ जाएगा? अनसिस्टमैटिक. वेरी इजी क्वेश्चन. क्या कहता है ये? द टोटल रिस्क ऑफ अ सिक्योरिटी इज 10%. इट इज एक्सप्रेस्ड इन द टर्म्स ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. तो ना कैन आई राइट इट एज वेरिएंस इज इक्वल टू 10 का स्क्वायर व्हिच वुड बी 100. The total variance would be systematic risk का variance plus unsystematic risk का variance. तो this would be 100 plus systematic risk तो मुझे पता ही नहीं है कितना है अभी. उसका variance तो निकाल ही नहीं सकती. उसका variance मैं निकाल सकती हूँ. कैसे निकाल सकती हूँ? बीटा स्क्वायर इंटू सिग्मा एम का स्क्वायर प्लस अनसिस्टमैटिक रिस्क. ठीक है, तो 100 is equal to, this would be 1.2 का square into 36. Why did I write 36? Because it is expressed in the terms of variance already, plus unsystematic variance. Your unsystematic variance would come in the form of, ये आ जाएगा आपका 51.84, तो 100 minus 58.14 would become 48.16. ठीक है, तो आपका सिस्टमैटिक रिस्क कितना हो गया, this 51.84 which will come out to be 7.2%, and your unsystematic risk would come out to be 48.16 का root 6.9%. ठीक है, CAPM is the another model that can be used in order to calculate the expected return, which we will do in the chapter 9 in detail. Exam pattern question, we have discussed all these questions in the videos, in this video or the past video. You can just use these formulas, the formulas that we have discussed, and calculate these. This is the another example that you can solve it by yourself, जहाँ पे आपको weights निकालना पड़ेगा. अगर मुझे yes, या आपको weights निकाल के then you have to calculate. Okay, so this chapter is finally over. The next chapter we are going to do is chapter number 9, which is related to the portfolio, and it is very linked chapter. That is why I am picking up this chapter again, and it's very important. Don't forget to share this video with your friend, because जब तक views नहीं आएंगे, जब तक मुझे motivation नहीं मिलेगा. Kindly subscribe, share. Okay, thank you, bye.